to help a rock star that delivers really great, and then they want to come to me and talk about other stuff that's going on and how I can support them while they're still delivering at a high level, I'm way open to that conversation. In fact, I'm hungry for that conversation. This is the Leadership Foundry podcast. I'm your co-host this week, Brandon Smith, and joining me this week is my amazing producer, the wonderful and talented Whitney. Whitney, how are you today?
Great, Brandon. How are you? It's good to be back.
I'm good. Yeah, it's good to be doing one of these with you again. It's always fun. So, Whitney, I haven't actually revealed the topic yet to listeners, okay. and so I'm going to set this up. So I've been doing a lot of sessions this year, and this same general kind of challenge keeps coming up in holding folks accountable and how we need to lead folks. And I've had several people mention to me this idea of radical acceptance. Okay, so this idea of just kind of radically accepting our team members and employees for kind of where they're at and kind of what's going on with them. And I love the spirit of radical acceptance because it has this idea of give folks grace and compassion, and love all that. And I disagree with it 100%. So, Whitney, today we're going to talk a little bit about how to both provide compassion and grace to folks, but remind ourselves and others we're on a team to do a job. I mean, maybe we're at a corporate workplace, maybe we're at a university or school, maybe we're at a nonprofit, maybe we're at a church, but we're here to work and accomplish something. And so we need to make sure we're keeping that front and center. So I'm going to kind of thread that needle today on how we still provide folks some goodness and all that, but make sure we remind them, yeah, well, I'm not your therapist. Well, I may be your therapist, but where you're not our therapist, we are here to do a job. So that's what we're going to be chatting about here today, Whitney.
I feel like this is a needed conversation, Brandon.
Yeah. I think so. I'm curious, Whitney, when you think about that, why do you think it's important for us to talk about it today? What do you hear or see?
So I've seen a lot, especially in the work that you and Randy do around accountability. So it just feels like people are hungry to gain more insight, more tips on how to make that a little bit more sticky within their organizations. I think that it feels like we're embracing talking about what's going on in our personal lives a little bit more and our emotions, but you're right. It kind of comes back to there's still a job that needs to be done. And so while there needs to maybe be some compassion and some patience there, at the end of the day, there's still an outcome that we need to produce through that.
Agreed, 100%. And I think I'm going to channel my partner and good friend Randy, because I think there's a way we can do this that's more of a process.
Yeah.
So let me talk about kind of where we've gone wrong with this. And so I was working with a team recently this year, and they were talking about this challenge. They've hired a lot more kind of hourly and kind of contract workers, folks maybe kind of earlier in their career. And right out of the gate, before the folks were even delivering results, they're offering up excuses. You know, they're saying, well, I've got this issue and this problem and this challenge at home and all these things. And so these managers aren't really sure what to do because they've been told in recent years, well, we need to kind of accept everyone for where they're at and make accommodations. And they're actually being taken advantage of is what's happening. So I want to go back to the trust formula for a minute. So if you all remember the trust formula, hopefully you do. I've talked about it more than once. The trust formula is authenticity plus vulnerability in parentheses, multiplied times credibility gets us trust. Okay. So authenticity plus vulnerability in parentheses, we multiply that times credibility gets us trust. All right. Now, when people are talking about all the stuff going on in their lives and challenges that might be in the way of them being able to do the work, that fall on that authenticity, vulnerability side of the equation. But here's where it really matters with the trust formula. Whenever we get a new leader that we're working with, or a new client, essentially the same dynamic, where we want to start is we enter in on the credibility side first, meet and exceed all of their expectations. And then we earn the right to go from right to left on the formula. We earn the right to then start to share more about our thinking, share more around our recommendations we might have, ask for more resources, maybe even gently push back and say no, and even share things going on in our personal life. So when we think about this in terms of process, what needs to be happening is the folks need to kind of earn the right for us to offer them that radical acceptance. Show us you can do the work, show us you deliver at a high level, and then talk about some of those challenges. So I was doing this session, and I happened to use my own personal example. I said the last 3 years or so have been a little challenging for me on a personal front. Been kind of just working through some family dynamics and some other issues there. And what I have confided to in this group and realized was that, I often will talk to Randy and say, hey, Randy, I'm going through these challenges. And he's great, supportive partner. He's amazing. He listens to me. It doesn't affect my work performance. So my work performance, whenever I'm working with a client or a team, I always deliver at the highest level, but that doesn't mean I'm still got stuff I'm working through personally. And so Randy kind of offers that support. And I was mentioning this to the team, and one of the directors there, he said, oh my gosh. He said, I'd welcome that conversation any day of the week to help a rock star that delivers really great. And then they want to come to me and talk about other stuff that's going on and how I can support them while they're still delivering at a high level. I'm way open to that conversation. In fact, I'm hungry for that conversation. I want to find that support. So it's a nice way to kind of think a little bit about kind of the batting order of this. We want to make sure that folks are delivering first to earn the right. So it really is genuine, and we're providing them genuine support and not an excuse, because we've over-indexed, and folks have been taking advantage of this whole idea of mental health at work. And there's a segment that are finding ways to use the proper language to actually make excuses for not going into the office, for not delivering things on time, for taking extra days off. And so we really want to deliver first and be able to earn the right to have some of those conversations. So that would be my first kind of thought around this, Whitney. Any reactions to that?
It's so funny that you explained it in that way in that process, because I literally wrote down squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
If you're always the squeaky wheel, if you're always wanting to use, for lack of a better term, that card, it can be overused, right? If you are that rock star that's constantly delivering, but yeah, you hit a little bit of a wall, a little bit of a speed bump, like that's human. So understanding that ratio there, but also if we're accepting everything all the time, that's kind of like saying yes all the time. At some point, we have to be able to say no to honor the yes. And so if the squeaky wheel is the one that's always getting the oil, what about your A player in the back who never really complains about anything, but yet at some point they're going to need that support too. And that would be terrible for them to kind of feel like they cannot express that need.
Yeah, I think for everybody listening, think about your best A player, the person you're like, man, if I could have 5 more of her or him on my team, I would do it in a heartbeat. Now imagine that they've got something personal going on in their life that they're kind of struggling with. They're still coming into work and delivering, but they got this personal thing. Wouldn't you want them to feel comfortable enough to share that with you and even support them through that? I think most of all of you would say yes. Mm-hmm. I want to be there for them. Now imagine they don't feel comfortable coming to you. I think you would probably feel bad as a leader and a manager. So we want to offer that compassion and support. The problem is the order in which it happens. We want to make sure that it's not crossing over and people aren't leading with excuses first. They need to be leading with performance first. And then when they do have life challenges, because by the way, it's life. We're going to have challenges. Life is an unpredictable, creative process. Mm-hmm. We're going to have things that come up that are unexpected and we're going to have to navigate and work through, in addition to everything else we got going on. And so being able to have that support, I think, is really, really important.
Agreed.
So I want to offer another point around this. So let's talk about therapists for a second. So one of the my kind of favorite therapists, ones that I'm kind of anchor myself towards, one of them is a gentleman by the name of Carl Rogers. It's Rogerian Therapy. And it's very kind of person-centered. And one of the elements that he says is what makes a great therapist is this concept of unconditional positive regard. So it's almost like love. You have this unconditional positive regard for this person, no matter kind of what they're going through and kind of how they're working through that. And while I think that's important for us as managers, we need to remember at the end of the day, the first number one job for us as managers is to help our team and employees deliver on the results, not to be therapists for them as they work through their personal issues. So another challenge that I commonly hear is people will say, my direct report's coming to me because the last, however many years, we've kind of opened these floodgates, and now folks want to talk about all their personal stuff to managers, and they're spending their entire one-on-one just talking about stuff going on in their personal life. And I know we want to care and support them, but that really is the job of a therapist. We're managers. We're here to help them realize their working and vocational potential, not their personal potential. We're not there to give them advice on how they should have a healthier relationship with their spouse. We're here to give them advice on how they should have a healthier relationship with their colleague. So we really want to keep it within the four walls. So let's say you've got an employee that comes to you and is always wanting to talk about personal stuff. One of the coaching tips that I've been offering is go to that, say to that employee, hey, I honor you and I'm so glad you feel comfortable talking to me about personal things. But I really want to make sure we use our time together to help you really grow and develop as a professional. That's really what we're here for here today. And that's my biggest job for you, is to help you grow as a professional. If you find you need additional support outside of work, I know there are a lot of trained professionals that specialize in those things, whether it's counselors or therapists, or pastors or other folks you might go to. Those would be great resources for you if it's personal related. But here, I want to help you realize your professional potential, both in this job and going forward. So I want to focus our conversations on that. And just by offering that kind of simple tip to the managers I've been working with, they said, oh my gosh, that's great. It just kind of helps me kind of reframe and add a little bit of clarity on what we're talking about. So Whitney, any thoughts or reactions to that?
Yeah, and I think it is important to highlight here how much your professional life impacts your personal life, right? You do highlight, Brandon, a lot about emotions in the workplace and how we can take those emotions in the workplace home. Well, if you have positive and uplifting things happening at work, it can just as much spread as the negativity, right? If you have a boss that's pouring into you professionally and that's starting to make you good about your professional life, you can take that home to your family. I'm not saying that's going to fix all the personal issues, but I think it has the opportunity to have that positive impact, almost in the reverse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. It's almost as you were talking, Whitney, I was imagining think if like you were, let's go back to college or high school, and you're a math teacher and they're coming to you and they want advice on social studies or English. Well, we can try and give them advice. We want to be helpful, but that's really not our area of expertise. Mm-hmm. But we're your math teacher, so we can help you on that. Well, it would be easy in those situations to say, maybe you need to go talk to your other teacher about your social studies work, because I can offer my thoughts, but that's not my strength. But when it comes to math, that's what I'm here for. So I think it's a nice reminder for us that, we talk about in life in general, and for us as managers and leaders, boundaries are so important. And those aren't bad things. It's just a way to drive clarity on the roles that we have in people's lives. So my role in your life is to support you professionally and help you grow in your role here and grow in your career long-term. If you need help with your personal relationships, I'm probably not your person for that. But you could talk to a therapist or someone else outside that might help you. So I think by offering that little extra framing, it can really help to set that up a little bit better and create a little more clarity on the very positive role you can play in someone's life and where you're not going to be able to add as much value. And that clarity also helps to drive more accountability, because that's another thing I want to add to this. We talk about accountability. The first step and number one step to accountability is always the same thing, always the same thing, always the same thing. Drive clarity on roles, goals, expectations, delivery dates, all those sorts of things. That's the first step. And if we do that well, okay, 80 to 85% of our folks are going to step right up to that. They just want to know what's expected of them. And then you'll have another kind of 10 or 15% that you're going to kind of come along a little more slowly, and we're going to have to do a little more positive reinforcement and kind of keep those lines of communication open. And then you'll always have that 5% that are just kind of squirrely. Well, the reason why I'm mentioning that also as it relates to this conversation around not doing radical acceptance is that there are some folks that if we're not clear up front on the purpose of our conversation, they will hijack it and they will use that as another way to avoid accountability. So think about it this way. If they spend the entire time talking about their relationship with their girlfriend or boyfriend, or their challenges with anxiety or whatever it happens to be, they spend the entire conversation around that, then when you come to them and say, hey, this thing was due yesterday, they can legitimately come back and say, well, I didn't know that. We didn't talk about that. Because what did you all talk about? You talked about their anxiety or their relationship challenges or anything else they might be going on in their personal life. So it allows them to kind of hang out a lot longer and not deliver results, which is only going to create more work for you and your team. So this is also a way to make sure that we're properly helping people realize their potential, and we're not creating an environment where we're allowing a lot of freeloaders to take up time and resources, which could be used for folks that are trying to move the needle forward. So just another thought. I think that framing around this, we want to be compassionate. We want to give people grace, but it's a reminder, we're at a workplace and folks are paid to get jobs done. That's how workplaces operate. We have forgotten the basic fundamental. We're not paid to come in and show up and talk about our issues at home. That's not what we're paid to do. Now, again, we want to support folks and have those going on, but they've got to earn the right for that conversation because that's an off the meter conversation. The first job, we're paid to do a job, whether we work in a church, work in a school, work in a government, work in a company. We're paid to get something accomplished. And we need to remind ourselves of that, but we also need to remind folks entering the workplace of that because somewhere along the lines, we've lost a little bit of this. So Whitney, any other kind of closing thoughts around our conversation on how do we kind of reframe this idea of radical acceptance and keep us a little more grounded in what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit of reframing of, I remember a counselor once told me, always assume positive intent.
Yeah.
So maybe it's coming out the gate, assuming positive intent, but then essentially pay attention to the fruit that bears, right? Like start with positive intent, but once you take stock of what that fruit is showing you, what's actually coming out, then you can make that decision of, okay, this is leaning on toward a little bit of like taking advantage versus I got a player that doesn't really talk about this a lot, but they are talking about it now. And therefore they need my extra attention, my extra pouring into.
Yeah. So one last thing is you said this. So I'm going to talk about the extremes for a minute.
Okay.
So as a mentor of mine shared with me, a therapy mentor of mine shared with me, he said, the first thing out of a client's mouth or a patient's mouth is the presenting issue. So listen to the order of things.
Interesting.
And the reason why I say that is because if we've got a new hire and within a few weeks, they're immediately talking about their dog just died. They've got massive anxiety issues. Their car's having issues as well. All these other kind of dramas. You've probably stumbled into a poor hire. This person's probably learned some ways to create smoke screens that allows them to survive in life. So rather than doing the work, they're going to spend all their time and energy creating smoke screens and using a lot of trickery than actually just doing the work. There are people out there that do this. And I'm not just kind of preaching to the choir, or maybe I am. Folks, you've seen this. This is unfortunately more common than it should be. A little more common in more junior positions, but still more common than it should be. So I think there's an element around that that I think is important for us to be aware of. Now, let's go to the other side. Our A players, our rock stars. You're going to have to listen real closely to their body language and how and what and even their just how they kind of present themselves to be able to determine if there's a problem. Because rock stars are going to be the least likely to come to you and say, hey, I'm dealing with this personal stuff and it's getting in the way of my work. Because they are typically kind of that ownership, initiative, critical thinking types. And they can sometimes take that to an extreme and feel like they can't ask for help. So if you're waiting around for your rock stars to say, hey, we just want to tell you, my dog just died and I'm going through a tough time, they're not going to tell you that. So notice things like, are they coming into work a little later? When you see them, do they look a little tired? Or are they snapping at people? Do they just seem a little more on edge or a little bit more tense or a little bit more like they're kind of fraying on the edges? And that's when you say to them at the end of one of your one-on-ones, hey, I want to tell you, you're an amazing rock star, and we couldn't be here without you. I've noticed a few things, and I just want to check in to see if everything's going okay for you, both with the team and at work, but outside of work. Because if there's anything I can do to offer you support, I want you to know I'm there for you. I really value everything you've done for the team, and my job is not only to support you as a manager, but also a colleague. So if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask. We'll need to open that door real wide for the rock stars. Our manipulators, they will open the door for you. So know that, because batting order also matters. The sneaky ones are going to come right out of the gate, and you're going to hear this stuff within the first 3 months of employment, issues and excuses. Rock stars, you'll never hear it. You're going to have to ask for it. So that would be my kind of closing thought on this, Whitney.
That is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
So folks, we want to give grace, want to give compassion. At the same time, we got to remind ourselves, and most importantly, remind our team, we are here to do a job. And we, as their manager and leader, are here to make them amazing and help them realize their working professional potential and their vocational potential. But we're not here to resolve their issues with their spouse or work through their anxiety disorders. They are trained professionals that can help them with that. So keeping ourselves in our lane is going to really help us not only make our stress level go down and help us be the most effective we can be, but it's also going to help us help those that we work with the most effectively. So take some of these nuggets as you go into the workplace this week and see what you notice. And pay particular attention to those rock stars. Notice for anything fraying on the edges. Make sure you check in with them. Because if you're like all the rest of the leaders I work with, we've got to have our rock stars. You lose one of them, and it becomes a little bit of a rockier ride. So try some of these things, see how it goes. And I look forward to hearing from you all. And I hope you enjoyed this episode and look forward to our next one.